He's like, oh, like, one of those. And he's screaming, pushing me. He's like, you are the man. That's a real man right there. But I did think the boat was going to capsize. And we were on a 53-footer. And it was blowing 55 knots. Like, that's almost like 60 miles an hour. We were like in this storm in the middle of winter fishing for sailfish.
Oh, I see it. Now it's all starting to kind of come into place.
The interest rates are dropping maybe 10 times over the course of a year coming up, where they predict. Hedge funds guys are coming in and doing buying into it. They want to be part of it because it's a successful, celebrity-driven live TV show that I host called Sport Fishing Championship. He's the one that had me refinance my home and get me a 2.8% in 2021. Jeez. Yeah, so I think they call that free money.
That is free money.
Yeah, that's my best deal I got going out of everything I do.
That's free money, and that's free money with interest. Welcome back for another episode of the Better Decisions podcast. I am your host, David Siddons, and today I am with Peter Miller. Peter is I don't know even how to describe you, a man of many fishing talents. I'm going to let you introduce yourself. You may recognize Peter, of course, from as it is here, Uncharted Waters, the show that you've had for many years, but there's also obviously a backstory because I know there's a lot of other things going on. Please introduce yourself, then we're just going to start to get into this.
All right, sounds good. Well, you nailed it. A lot of fishing experience, a lot of expertise. I've had many fishing shows this coming year. I'm going to be doing 4 different fishing shows in addition to Uncharted Waters, which is my show on the Discovery Channel. But in a nutshell, I've been fishing since I was 3 years old, 56 now. I caught my first sailfish when I was 10 years old, vacationing from New York to Miami Beach with my dad. Had that mounted, which is like a stuffed fish really, but it's not the actual fish. I still have it. And it was actually getting dilapidated because it had been traveling around with me for, 43 years. So it fell apart and I was like, well, I don't know if I'm going to do anything. Somebody came to my house to do a photo shoot and the guy knocked it over, it hit the ground and it broke even more. He goes, we're going to have that fixed for you. So they redid the whole fish. It was like miraculous. When I saw it hit the ground, I thought, wow, I think I'm going to get a nice new fish out of this deal. Went from 10 to 56. Anyway, so I've been doing, I fished a lot of tournaments. We were at the podium 130 times, winning, top angler, top team. We were called a dynasty team. We did it all. So we won pretty much every tournament there was from Palm Beach to Key West. And we fished abroad, and just, slowly but surely kind of started getting into that fishing arena where I knew I wanted to do a television show from when I was a kid in high school. And then I became the youngest ever angling director at the Miami Beach Rod and Reel Club at 22 years old. And it just kind of went from there. I was doing some modeling just to pay for my fishing addiction. That was my money maker to allow me to fish, to buy a boat. And I continued on, and then one day I pulled the trigger and I said, it's time to do a show. And I'm not going to do it unless I can make money while I'm doing it. And lo and behold, I did. I made some deals, and people knew me already from my fishing accolades, and I was just off to the races, partnered with Florida Tourism. Before I knew it, I had the governor on my show. I had the agriculture chairman on the boat. I had the attorney general on my boat. So I was really involved with Florida. I'm not a political guy, but I did have these people because they knew how much fishing was doing for the industry, and it's now turned out to be a $142 billion industry annually globally. So it's one of the biggest sports on the planet, like top 5.
Wow. So as a real estate broker, and again, people might watch this and go, okay, so David's a real estate broker, and he's bringing on Peter Miller, expert fisherman, show host. What's the connection? And I was thinking about this, and I was thinking, you know what's happening right now is we've seen so many people coming down into South Florida, people coming from New York and California, who honestly, like myself, I'm a novice. I don't know really anything about fishing. So this is me just trying to feel my way around, and I'm sure a lot of people will watch this and appreciate obviously your expertise, but some will not really understand it. But they'll be thinking, hey, I like the idea of moving down to Miami, or I'm down here already. So what do I need to know about the fishing, fishing business, about the fishing as a sport, as a hobby, of something to get into? How do you explain the fishing bug? Like, you obviously got it from a young age, and you said from that young age you caught your first sailfish and then you were hooked. How do you describe the fishing bug? Like, what is it about the sport that kind of has grabbed you since the age of 10 and has held you so firmly for 46 years?
I think it's the unknown. That's number one. So you're always chasing kind of the unknown. It could be this big or it could be this big, and sometimes if you lose a big fish, that could be the key to make you like go after that fish for the rest of your life. Like that can happen. Also, if you're kind of technical and you're exacting in the things that you do in life, it becomes a challenge. And so it's challenging, and you want to be as good as you can and get better every time you go out, and you want to employ new tactics, better tactics, learn more about it. In any occupation, you want to be the best that you can be. You want to stand out, and you also want to catch those fish. And because you caught those fish, now you're going to stand out. So it's kind of like this give and take, and it's an interesting position to be in, but that's really, I think, the key. You get this bug, and a lot of these young kids get it, and that's all they want to do. I get calls all the time. I just got a call on the way here. My son's a big fan of yours. He's 13 years old. If you could just take him out of the boat, he'll wash your boat. He'll do anything. He just wants to fish every day, all day. And I get these calls for cameo, things where I have to speak to these young children about fishing, and they're just, flattered. And even these older men, their sons are busting the chops like, oh, don't forget to say, my dad lost this big fish, and when the hat blew off, and the mother fell in the water, and all these funny things. So it's an interesting thing. But yeah, the bug hit early, and it's still with me, and I'm still learning at 56, and I want to get better and better and better. And this is a big year. 2025 is a big year. But when you talk about Miami, when you talk about Florida, people ask me, because I fished all over the world, from Japan, all over the world. I travel for my show quite a bit. I would say Florida is probably Miami is one of my favorite spots on the planet to fish, because you have beautiful homes, you've got beautiful condos, beautiful beaches, great restaurants. The proximity to catching quality fish is 3 miles off the beach. I can be looking at people sunbathing off the beach, not any perverted way. I mean, I'm not spying on them with binoculars, but I can see them. And, we're catching sailfish, we're catching tuna, we're catching mahi. And we come in, and I come in through Government Cut on my boat, and you see people on the pier, Smith and Walensky, people are sitting having cocktails, and I'm driving by. I've just caught 10 sailfish, my cooler's full of fish. We got the music cranked up, and we're going back to the dock, and it's just a beautiful place to have a boat and catch fish very close to home.
It's so when you come out of government, is that the way that you go? When you're going fishing, you're going through the Government Cut. So for those who don't know, and of course those that obviously do, that's the channel as you come out past Smith and Walensky, south of 5th, the South Point tip. You go past Continuum, and then you're out into the open water. And you go about 3 miles out?
Yeah, it's pretty close.
Which takes you, how long does it take you to go 3 miles out?
5 minutes.
Okay, so it's really close.
Yeah.
And then once you're there, the kind of fish that you're catching, what is... like South Florida, what is it known for in terms of what's the fish that you love fishing for?
Sailfish has got to be the number one. That's what brought me to the dance, as they say. Sailfish are very plentiful. They swim in schools. And when they come through and they're feeding, you can catch multiples, and they're the fastest fish in the ocean on top of that. So they're swimming at 70 miles an hour when you hook them. So they're racing, wow. And it's just like a streak of lightning going through the water, and then they take to the air. So they're all jumping at once. You can hook 6 at once. If you have 6 lines in the water, it's not uncommon to have bites on all of them. So you got 6 guys, 6 sailfish from 40 pounds to 80 pounds jumping all over the place, going 70 miles an hour in every direction. And it's controlled chaos. I don't know if I'm going to use controlled first. I'm going to say it's total chaos. And then I'll try to control it. Guys, calm down. Stop pulling. The fish is running. You don't need to pull. Just relax. When he stops, then we'll start working him in. We'll move this way. He's losing too much line. We go towards his fish because he's doing this. And there's days when I fish by myself, and I have 6 fish on at once. And let me tell you something. That is a fire drill, to say the least. But the fishing is amazing off the coast of Florida. And then you have the flats, which is right nearby. So if you go by Fisher Island, which is just right to the south of what we're talking about, just inside of that, you've got bonefish, permit, tarpon, snook, which are big game fish. I mean, people travel all over the world to catch these fish. So you have everything here in South Florida, and then you have the Everglades if you want to run out there and do some fishing in really shallow water in most pristine environments that you could ever imagine.
So that's that point between Fisher Island and Key Biscayne, is that what you mean, that section between there?
Kind of, yeah. There's a couple spots in there, and then if you go beyond that to Stiltsville, which is another, past Key Biscayne to the tip, Cape Florida, then you have the homes, the Stilt homes, which are about 7 left. standing in the water, and then beyond there they have these flats with a deep channel in between, and then flat, deep channel, and you can work those flats and catch, world record fish right here in the, you'd call it the inner city, but it's really just a pristine, water environment. It's really
Are there many places around the world? Because the way you kind of describe it, for those who say, look, I want to take up fishing, is Miami one of the best places to possibly learn because you've got everything so close? It's like within minutes of, let's say, casting off the boat, you're out there in the water, and then you can have your lines down and you're catching fish almost immediately.
Yeah, I think it's very fair to say, because it is that close, and there's plenty of boats, and the fishing can just turn on for 6, 7, 8 months of the year, and when that stops, when it's not on fire, you go into a different area. Maybe you're going to fish the flats. There's 2 guys on a small boat poling the flats pushing the boat along 2 feet of water looking for bonefish, permit, tarpon, things like that. You can also fish on the beach for snook, shark. There's jacks, all kinds of tarpon, tons of fish along the beaches. And especially at night, they clear the beaches at night, and a lot of people go at sunset. And so you have the land guys, you've got the canals for peacock bass and largemouth, which are unbelievable, and people love the peacock bass. And then you've got, that offshore zone, sailfish, tuna, sharks, mahi, kingfish, wahoo. I mean, ono. When you go to the sushi bar and you get some ono, this is good. This is good meat. That's what they call it in Hawaii. A lot of people don't know that, but wahoo is ono. And then obviously tuna is ahi. And, we've got it all. And that's the key. It's close, it's accessible, it's usually not too rough. And it's just a great thing. I tell people Miami's the best spot probably to fish, because it's just like that. You live in a great place, close to the great fishing. It makes the world of sense.
Do you go at a certain time? Because obviously you got like morning and evenings. What does a day look like? Let's say you're going to take someone out. I'm just trying to imagine it. You say, okay, let's be on the dock at 7 a.m. and then we go out, or is there doesn't matter what time you go out, you're always going to be able to fish? Yeah,
we work the tides, because the tides determine if the bait's going to be moving. Every fish really likes current. So if you're trying to catch a live bait, which we do for kite fishing, we employ a method called kite fishing, where we actually fly kites and we deploy and dangle basically 3 baits, live baits off each kite. It's a pretty elaborate system, but once you learn how to use it, it's the best. But you want the current. So you look at the tides, you look at the weather, you look at what's coming. The storms are building in the summers over out of the Everglades. We have a sea breeze, so it keeps it kind of inshore. It never really makes it offshore. So while everyone's getting rained on inshore, we're offshore fishing. But I'd say the tides are important. A lot of the charter boats just have a steady time, because they can't say, oh, well, tomorrow the tide, they're 7 to 3, 7 to 4. I love going out in the summers or in the spring at 3:34. All the boats have cleared out. I've taken my daughter Emily, my son Niles, my wife Alessia. We go out there and we're catching tunas and sailfish like the second we set up, because everyone's gone. It's quiet. Here's some nice fresh sardines, some nice threadfin herring, and it's on.
And I see a lot of the videos where you are, and obviously as the Uncharted Waters, you're not just you traveled the world. I know it started with. And I was looking up the bio, and I was getting help from Emily, who's been fantastic, giving me a kind of a lowdown of how it started. You originally had your fishing team Get Lit, and you guys won a lot of tournaments. She told me a story about you. So Emily's daughter went to Gulliver, great school. It's actually where my 2 daughters are trying to go right now for 6th grade, and said that you'd do the fishing tournaments, and you would you'd win these tournaments, and they kind of give you cash prize money, and then you'd be like, all right, I'm going to pay the tuition with what a cash here and there.
Yeah.
Which probably raises a few eyebrows in the.
Yeah, especially nowadays. Back then, it would seem like more understood. It was past like the Miami Vice days.
Yeah.
It was in between now and then, so it was kind of. Yeah, I do remember paying tuition in cash, and the guy was eyeballing me going, what exactly do you do again?
Yeah.
I said, I'm a professional fisherman, and unfortunately sometimes
what are you fishing?
What are you fishing for? Yeah, they call them square groupers.
Yeah.
That's actually the term for when, they drop the drugs out of the plane.
Oh, that is?
Yeah,
okay.
But we don't, there's no drugs involved. I don't do any drugs. But the drugs were dropped out of the plane, and it'd be a square grouper, and they washed up on shore. Back in the Miami Vice days, it was common to be on South Beach and have these bales just show up on shore. I've seen 2. And I've been fishing my whole life.
I was going to say, you must have seen a lot of crazy stuff. I mean, you've fished with, and you've taken out some big celebrities, big names, and I'd love you to give me a story of like one, like Miami style situation, celebrity that you took out. What's your most memorable? You're gonna have one that really like maybe sticks in there.
So many. I would say I took Chris Jones from the Kansas City Chiefs. He's considered the #1 defensive tackle in the league right now, and he's negotiated this incredible contract. And I was shooting a show, and he was excited because he had actually asked me about doing a show and going fishing with me when we met a few times. He was like a big fan, and he was like, getting interviewed, and he's so like giving. He's such a nice guy. He's like, hey, no offense to all the other fishermen out there, but Peter Miller's the GOAT. And I'm like, Chris Jones just called me the GOAT. I'm like, look at this guy. He's killing it out there. Most sacks for the year, and he's just a great guy. But he says to me, normally I shoot fishing 2 days, like 2 full days of fishing for my shows. And he says, yeah, I could do it. And I said, okay, well, I'll see you like 7, 8 in the morning. He goes, oh, yeah, okay. Calls me back. He goes, hey, can we make it 4 p.m.? And I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, oh, man, I'm really into my training right now, and I can't be at Miami Beach Marina until 4 p.m. So I went out and surveyed the edge. I watched the currents. I caught the bait. I rigged everything up. I had everything dialed in. And we went out, and he's like, we're with Peter Miller. We're armed. We're dangerous. I'm thinking, oh, my God, we got like 3 hours to fish to make a TV show with this guy. Couldn't be nicer. So the chemistry was unbelievable. And he's a giant. He's 6'6", like 310. So when he hugs you, his arms wrap around you like twice. Yeah. But he's in good shape. He's not fat at all. He's just a big guy. And we went offshore. We put the baits out, and he goes, Peter, how long is it going to be? And it was like, boom, sailfish within the first 5 minutes. And I said, hey, my joke is like, sorry it took so long. I do one of those. And then we fight the fish, and he does a great job. We get the fish to the boat, and then we put the baits back out. We catch a hammerhead shark, which he's more interested in that than he was the sailfish, which most fishermen don't want to catch sharks. People that are new in the game think sharks are pretty cool to catch, but we look at it as like a nuisance because our they're gonna cut our hooks off. We got to reset. It's a whole thing. So
it's like there's ocean's raccoons.
Exactly. Yeah. The alligators. So we caught a hammerhead shark after that. And then he said, Peter, I really want a tuna. I'm like, oh my God, how much can I produce in this amount of time?
Magic wand.
Yeah. So we catch this tuna. We get it to the boat, and I bring it in. He's like high-fiving me. We're screaming, and we're so excited. I'm like, I can't believe we caught a sailfish, a shark, and now we're on this tuna. We get it in the boat, and I'm showing him how to bleed the fish because you want to get the blood out of the fish, and it's humane way to do it. You bleed them, and immediately they're out of the misery, and they're in ice. It's not like you leave them flopping on the deck, and so that's what we do. So as I reach in there and I go to bleed the fish, you do this one little pull there, and I guess I went a little far, and I wound up pulling the heart out of the tuna, which is not uncommon to do with a lot of guys on their first tuna. And the joke is, on your first tuna, you have to eat the heart, and it's kind of like a
rites of passage.
Exactly. Yeah, thank you for that. I wasn't going to find that word. I was like, what was that word? So I pull it out, and he just jumps out, like way away from me. He's like almost like a bee was coming. He was like, no way, man, no way, no. You're like, no way. And he looks at me, and I go, come on, Chris. I go, look, it's still beating. And he goes, man, I'll give you $5,000 if you eat that heart. And I'm looking at him like, this is easy for me. This is like eating a French fry, because it wasn't giant. It wasn't like a big tuna. It was like a 30-pound tuna. So it was like a little tenderloin chunk. And I'm looking at it, and I hadn't eaten one in a while, and I was wondering how it was going to taste. I'm thinking about it, but I'm like, $5,000? And I'm like, okay. So I pop it in my mouth, and I said, do I have to chew it? He said, yeah. So I took a couple chews on it, and I swallowed it, and I'm telling you, it just tasted like a piece of tenderloin. It still had a little salt on it, and it went down like smooth, like butter. And he looks at me. He's like, oh, like, one of those. And he's screaming, pushing me. He's like, you are the man. You are that's a real man right there. And I'm like, wow. So we had this great moment with one of the best players of all time. He's only getting better. And then we wound up doing that. So then we had some sashimi, and then we catch another tuna. And I said, Chris, there's another heart in this one. I said, you ready? And his eyes lit up like huge. He's like, are you ready? I was like, no, I can't do another one. So we wrapped it up. We put the music on, and we came home, and it was like a 4-hour fishing festival with a great guy, one of the best players of all time. And I'd say that has to be one of my more fun stories.
That's an awesome story. So that story, everything went right. Everything like that was like time. It was almost like you must have felt like, is this being staged? Because normally you watch these shows and you go, how staged is this? I know that in real estate, we see shows all the time, and it's like 95% staged and not real at all. But this is like capturing the moment.
Yeah.
When does it go wrong? Like, is there you must have had cases where it gets scary. Like,
well,
did you think I might not? There must be moments where you're out there, whether it's the weather or something's going on, and you think, am I going to make it back? Have you ever had any of those moments?
Yeah, we've had a couple of those. It wasn't like I didn't know if we were going to make it back, but I did think the boat was going to capsize, and we were on a 53-footer, and it was blowing 55 knots. Like, that's almost like 60 miles an hour. We were like in this storm in the middle of winter fishing for sailfish. So we had our kites out. The boat's rocking so hard that the outriggers, which you clip your lines to and run them up the outriggers to put them further away from the boat, they were like slapping the water on both sides on this 53-footer. And we'd be up on the bow trying to fight a fish because we'd have multiples on, and you would slide. You didn't have any traction, so you'd get on your butt and you would actually slide with the inertia of the rock to the other railing and like catch on, and to get back was super scary, and it was cold,
storm,
and it was raining, and it was foggy, and I'm like, man, I can't be on the bow. So I came back to the back, and we're still fishing, and we haven't caught anything, and I go inside to clean my glasses for the 100th time because it's raining, it's wet, waves are coming in. And I look out and I see everybody with a sailfish on, and the boat's like this. And I'm looking and I'm like, oh my God, I got to get out there. But I was just finishing, and I run out there, and then a fifth fish bites, and I'm late on it, so I miss it. But these guys wind up catching 4 fish, and I have to leader these fish. And we're backing into these seas like 10 footers. Waves are over my head. The bait wells have become dislodged. They weigh, think about it, 60 gallons times 8. We're talking 500 pounds a piece. So they're now flying around the deck, 500 pounds, like crashing in your legs. Sunglasses, sneakers are flying off. Phones are gone. Water's up to our waist, and we're backing down. And I have to leader these fish, meaning I have to grab the leader with my hand and retain it, which means you have to give it to the committee to prove that you caught that fish on that leader. And so you have to like wrap your arm, and you're soaked. I mean, you're trying to, and the line is only 30-pound test, which is light. So I'm soaked. I can't see. So you wear a glove and you try to wrap it around your arm. And I remember the guys, and the fish jumped at me. I had to have him run back, and I ran back. And one of them, I got like just the knot on the swivel out of 15 feet a leader. Just the little circles on the knot were left. And I looked at everybody. I go, does this count? And I'm like, we're almost falling out of the boat. We're all shivering, and it counted, and we got first place in the tournament. And it was one of those moments. And then we go to the stage to win our title. And I won best angler in the tournament because I'd caught fish the day before, the 2 days before that. And they said, Peter, be careful. The trophy's not really mounted in the base, So when you go up there, be careful. I'm like, don't worry about it. A couple of celebratory drinks, and I like pump it over my head. And sure enough, this like aluminum pointy giant trophy of a sailfish falls out of the wood base and like just misses the tournament director and like tumbles off the stage onto the ground, and everyone in the audience is like, have another drink, Peter. And I'm like, oh my God. So it was quite.
And that's why you got that reputation as the GOAT. Now I see it. Now it's all starting to kind of come into place. It's a whole other world. And I think that realization, and the way you describe it, it's so visceral. It's a totally different experience to what I think most people might be aware of. And I think once you start to experience it, for those who starting into it and just hearing this story and thinking, I like the sound of that. I think I want to go out and do this. What's a good place to start? Like, what would you say to people starting to get into it for the first time? They move down to Miami and they think, you know what, I'm going to, I want to start fishing. Are they going to run out and buy a boat and buy all the gear? And how do you recommend just starting?
I would recommend for anyone wanting to do something like that is to come down and charter a boat, pay for someone to take you out, have the tackle, ask a lot of questions, learn about what they're doing and why, try to get as much information as you can. And if you're shy and you don't want to do all that, just pay attention. So then you'll learn by doing that. And then you can work your way up. You can start on a smaller boat. They have center consoles for charter. I've even entertained the idea of using my boat as a charter boat. I've had some clients or people that ask me, hey, I'd love to fish with you, and I thought maybe I should do these, special charters once in a while on my boat, on my personal boat. But I would say charter boats, and then as you work your way up, you can go to a bigger boat, which is like a sport fish, which has a cabin, AC. It could be an older boat, or you can go really nice. They have private boats that they rent out for $25 or like $5,000 a day, but they're beautiful, like personally owned boats. And and then you learn like that. And then if you want to fish, go to a smaller type fish, you can go to the flats, or you can take the kids, for snapper, little things like that. Have fun with yellowtail snapper, grunts, just to have, anything to keep the kids interesting if it's with kids. But as an adult, charter, figure it out, see what you like. And then if you really get that bug, then you can work on buying that boat if you really feel like it's good for you. But like I said, Miami is definitely the number one place, from the Palm Beaches, all the way down to the Keys. But I really feel like Miami is the spot for me. I tell everybody all the time.
What marina do you sail out of when the ones you're using?
I've been in Coconut Grove because it's relatively close in proximity to where I live.
Great marina.
Yeah. So there's a lot of marinas down there. And then they have Monty's right next door, which has a boat. They have boat lifts. So you can put your boat on a lift, like an elevator, and take it out of the water every time you use it, and then just drop it back in on your own. But some of the marinas, you can't take your boat out of the water because I have a tower, and they don't have storage for boats with towers inside or, in their racks, because they just have racks. It's like a shoe rack. You can't put, a giant shoe in a shoe box. So, and at private homes, the ultimate would be if you bought a home on the water, you have dock space. And that's the ultimate. You walk outside.
I was going to ask you about that. Like the Coconut Grove marinas, before we get into the waterfront houses, because I do want to ask you about that. Coconut Grove Marina is down the street from here. And my first experience in the whole of Coconut Grove was when I met my wife sitting on my brother-in-law's apartment in Grove Hill, looking over the marina. And it was beautiful. It's a beautiful marina. There's so much around. And obviously just going out from there, a lot of people who live right now on in the condos that are on the Bayshore Strip, or even in the houses close by, literally will walk down to the marina. And of course, there's the clubs, the boating clubs, which are all the way along there. So I see those guys, they come off the boats, and then it's either into Monty's or the Coral Reef Yacht Club,
right,
which is right there, right next door. Day out, fishing, having fun, getting to know it. And there's plenty of places you can rent boats from that location, or, if you got your own boat. What boat do you have, by the way?
Invincible is my boat partner for my show. I used to be with the Yellowfin boats. And then when I started doing my show on Charter Waters, I had a show called Bass to Billfish. Yeah. And Yellowfin was my sponsor. I did that for about 90 episodes. And then I wanted to change it up a little bit and do more of a documentary style fishing and travel the world and not really worry about a boat partner. But the marketing team from Invincible contacted me. They said, Peter, they want to talk to you about potentially doing this. And it just hit at the right time, and they wanted to use their new cat hull from, which is instead of a mono hull, which is a V hull, they use a cat hull. And the beam, the width of the boat is like 12 feet wide by 37 feet long, and it's just gigantic. And I was like, wow, this is pretty cool, So we wound up doing a deal where I'm with them. I've been with them I'm about to sign another 3-year contract today. As a matter of fact, I was going over the notes today. There's one question I had on it, so I couldn't quite sign off on it. But they're a great company, great boat. They're building me a beauty. It's going to be at the boat show coming up, which is the Fort Lauderdale Boat Show at the end of October. Yep. It's a 43-foot V hull with a cabin, with a tower, with quad Mercury motors, 400 V10, so it's like a 70-mile-an-hour boat. It has a gyro in it, which is called a Seakeeper, which stabilizes the boat when it rocks.
I was going to say, I know about the gyros because I've got a client who just bought, I was in Nantucket he bought a boat up there, and he bought a condo down actually in Coconut Grove. There's a new building called Vita on Grove Isle. Okay. He's bringing his boat down. I think it's like 53. And we were sailing up in Nantucket area and just having fun. It was just like days outing, really nice. Yeah. But when you come down into Miami, I realized there's a whole other experience. Up there, it's a different kind of vibe completely. But coming down into Miami, and I feel like boating is a big part of the business of living down in South Florida. Our team stretches, as most people know, but I'll say for those who don't, from Pinecrest all the way up to Palm Beach. We got agents in Boca, Fort Lauderdale, Miami, of course, and all these, the canals, the one bridge to the bay, two bridges to the bay, open water, the gated community, what I call the basins. So they're kind of I call it the Great Gatsby view, the ones you have in Old Cutler Bay and Gables Estates. For living down on the water, it's really exceptional. If you were to, living down in the homes on the water, what are the do's and don'ts that you notice with boating? Because you got friends in lots of different waterfront locations, because obviously you've been sailing with them and fishing with them. What is what's your favorite place? Like, you can buy a house anywhere. Where do you buy that house?
I would say, again, with the bridges, like if you're, as you start growing older, as you get older, you want a bigger boat. Some of these guys actually have had big boats and then they downsize because it's too much of a hassle. And they just say, you know what, it's just too big. I don't want the captain and the mate and this guy here all the time. And I want to downsize. I want to have my own simple boat, a 25, 27 footer, and just go out and do my own thing. But for most people, I think, as you grow older and you have the money and you have the ability to buy a beautiful home on the water, you're going to want a great boat that can entertain everybody. You become kind of an entertainer as you get to that income level where it's just, what else can I do? What am I going to do? And a lot of these guys take people fishing. They take their family out, or some people just want to go to the sandbar. Some people just want to go down the river and go to one of the restaurants, whatever it may be, Sea Spice or, things like that.
Kiki's on the river.
Yeah, exactly.
Which has exploded. That whole, going out around the waterways. Fort Lauderdale has 330 navigable miles of waterways. Is something that Lane Tatum, who is our, Fort Lauderdale expert, will constantly remind me, like, we've got these amount of waterways. And Miami, well, you don't have as many, but we've got the islands, you've got the Venetian Islands, you've got Palm Hibiscus, Star Island, Sunset Islands. And then obviously once you come to the mainland, we've got our gated communities of Old Cutler, Coco Plum, Gables Estates, Old Cutler Bay, Journey's End, Devon Court, Camp Biscayne, the moorings, of course. And then obviously the little areas that are in the north section of the Grove. They all have their own charm. But as you said, as your boat gets a little bigger and you want to entertain more, what do you think is like the right size? I see a lot of people with the 47, 48 foot boats. Is that? I
think that's even? Like on that's probably the right size for a family with a nice property. That 60, 70 footer. A lot of guys are going for that. Men and women going for that 60, 70, 80, 90. They even have like 100-foot sport fish now, like fishing boats that are 100 feet. Viking is building these boats. So you have all the amenities that you could imagine, and it's not being cooped up in like a yacht. If you have a yacht and you like fishing and everyone wants to fish, you can't really fish off a yacht. There's a back deck. Yeah. But if you did happen to catch something to get that fish into the boat, it'd be like the mate would really have to be into it on the boat, or the chef would really have to be into it, who's ever cooking. Or
I was thinking it's like yanking a tuna through a window of a 911 Porsche.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
It's gonna flop on the passenger seat.
Yeah, it's going to be like a tuna can by the time you get in a boat. It's like squeezing like toothpaste tube. So I think that 60, 70 footer is a good sized boat. But then you do have the guys that don't care to fish. They just want to entertain and they just want to ride around. They want to enjoy their wealth, the hard-earned money that they made. Hopefully, is whatever case it is, if they were entrusted with it, or they were in a trust, or they, or independently they made it on their own, whatever. I think it just depends on who you are. But when you asked about where do I think the best place would be, like for me, what I know and where I've been is Old Cutler Bay, and I've been to Gables Estates. And when I think of like the Miami Beach side of things, for me, I like this spot better because it's less busy. I feel like it's kind of like more of a bait thing, honestly. It's kind of my weirdness with my fishing, weirdness. I want to catch bait, and I know the bait is really good off of Key Biscayne. So if I lived on Miami Beach, I'd be coming down towards Key Biscayne to catch bait. Yeah. But if I live at Old Cutler Bay, I'm going straight out to Stiltsville. There's markers there, stuff like right off the tip of Key Biscayne. You catch all the baits you want, and then you can go fishing. And you don't have to fool with a lot of boat traffic.
I noticed that, actually, because we sold a lot of stuff on Key Biscayne. So end of Master Drive, Point Lot, Harbour Drive, which we sold a house last year. And again, I noticed a lot of the boats outside of those houses, a lot of fishing boats. Yeah. A lot more there. The beach, you see a lot more of the show boats, kind of like fancy, it's cool, the yachts. Yeah. But once you come over to the quay, and then obviously once you're into Gables Estates, Old Cutler Bay, you've got big lots, you've got big land, and you've got huge frontage. And so you can have, in some cases, if you've got like a point lot, you can have your fishing boat, and you might even have your day and something else, but you've definitely got the space for it. I love that area too. Look, it's just down the street from us. I definitely prefer it to being
Coco Plum's great too. I forgot that because that's when you said down the street. I thought about where we were. Coco Plum's a great spot. I've been fishing out of there since early 90s. You know, my friends all had boats there, and I fished tournaments out of there. So it's kind of a nice private spot, and it's really quick access to the bay. Like the other places I mentioned. So that's another great spot. But the area from Old Cutler Bay and Cocoa Plum and Gables Estates, love all those. And the ones you mentioned in between. I mean, obviously the moorings, your private homes, you know, you're spending some money, you have the money. The next move is buying a boat, and then you generally have a smaller boat with it, because one of your kids is going to be like, hey, you know I can't take the big boat. Can I take the smaller boat? So then it becomes, you know, I mean, look, we're here to enjoy life. And if you worked really hard, why not be able to go do what you want? Why not be able to afford your kids some of the coolest things, you know, and let them go have fun with it? You know, my daughter Emily, she comes to the house and she jumps in the flats boat with her boyfriend Omar, and they go out and catch bass. They catch peacock bass. They go wakeboarding. They go swimming, they go sunning, they listen to the music, they go chill out. We go for nighttime cruises, turn on the music and just putt around and look at everybody's house and see what they're doing.
Lifestyle.
And it's just kind of, you know, we live in like a little wonderland down here.
And
I
you
really
get to
believe
eat
that.
That was the other thing I was going to come to. You get to eat the fish. Like, you've traveled the world, and I've seen your videos, your episodes, where there you are, like literally. I mean, obviously you had the eating the heart of the tuna story, but there's like great uni and levels of quality fish that you're literally like bringing it in, gutting it, cooking it, eating it. That's. I mean, I'm guessing for a lot. And one of our team, actually, George, who grew up in Old Cutler Bay, would give us those stories as well. He would bring the fish in, and they would gut it, and they would slap on the barbecue, and you know, the party would continue.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing to have the ability to do that. Like my wife, she's, great that you caught 10 sailfish, but did you get anything we could eat? Because we release all the sailfish. It's all catch and release.
Yeah.
So
you're not stuffing all of those.
No, we're done. We're done. Every now and then, out of probably the 4,000 sailfish that I've caught, maybe 2 have died, you know, due to whatever. Maybe they had a heart attack or whatever happened. Maybe they were ill to begin with. But we would bring them aboard, and we would actually have the fish smoked, and we'd make smoked fish dip out of the sailfish and give it to all our friends, and bring big Tupperware containers with a sleeve of crackers. And it's absolutely out of this world. But to eat a sailfish or a billfish, it just doesn't taste good. Now, if you're in a country where you don't have any food and you catch a 350-pound blue marlin, they're bringing it home and they're going to eat it. And that's a story. That's another story. You started asking me about, real quick, started asking me about these stories about like what's one of the weirdest or strangest or most unique things that's happened out there. I was in the Dominican Republic fishing. And we were there for months, fishing every day. And we were in a big sport fish, a 60-foot sport fish, with a whole crew, my buddy's boat. It was a captain, 2 mates, and 3 of us as anglers. So we would go to these areas where they're called fads, where the locals would build these 50-pound drums filled with cement, put wooden stakes through them with pipes, with points on the end, and they would tie 3,000 feet of rope to these canisters, and then they would tie palm tree fronds and tarps and styrofoam and netting, whatever they could. It's called a fish aggregating device. They're called fads, fish aggregating device. So basically, they draw the smaller fish in, a little bigger fish comes in, the tunas come in, and all of a sudden the marlin and the big mahi are feeding on these. So they plant these fads out there with their own time on these panga boats, which are slim 23 boats, and we're going out in 10-foot seas, and you get out there and you're thinking, man, that was a long ride, that was rough. You get out there and you see a guy by himself deploying this 50-gallon drum filled with concrete down at the bottom of the ocean, and it's 1,000 feet, so they put like 3,000 feet of line on due to current. And anyway, so these guys kind of monitor what they're doing, and they fish their fads. They go and check on them all the time. They tie new stuff all the time in case stuff breaks off. And this one day, we're trolling through the fads, and we're trolling through the fads, and they don't care for it, because they've done the hard work. They've made the fads. So you got to establish a relationship. And it was kind of our first trip down there. So we didn't really know how to go about it, but we kind of asked what they needed. Is there anything you guys need? Yeah, we could use hooks. We could use leader. We could line, maybe some reels, some shirts, this, that, whatever. So we wind up learning that later, but this is what caused us to learn that. So we hook up with a 350-pound blue marlin. I'm reeling it in. The thing's jumping all over the ocean. We're backing down, speeding through these fads that are styrofoam sticking out of the water. There's probably 15 of them. They're stretched out for about 10 miles. And we're going through, and this boat sees us, this little panga, and they start motoring full speed at us. And I'm looking at them, and I'm fighting this fish, and we're back, and I'm like, of course he sees us. I'm like, what is he doing? He comes over. Well, I mean, this fish is jumping at 40 miles an hour, 350 pounds going away like this, and he speeds right up to it, and he and his partner, 2 giant gaffs, and they stick the fish in midair with these big hooks, big things, and they take the fish, they cut our line and swing it into their boat.
They're like sea pirates, fish pirates.
Completely. And I was like, if you guys want it, you could like told us, like, hey, any chance you guys want to give us that fish when you're done? But I mean, to come in and like risk their lives to get this fish. So it was like a really kind of scary but cool deal. At the same time, I was in shock. And we weren't filming a show. We were fishing for fun. So we went out the next day.
These guys were pretty desperate for fish.
Yeah, and then everybody's yelling at each other, and then we're like, we wound up giving them a box, and we gave them some reels and line and hooks and beers and shirts and this. And so from that point on, when they saw us, they're like, so they didn't take any of our fish anymore. We released everything, but they got the goods that they needed, we would have used the fish for the money to buy that stuff anyway.
What do these fish sell at? Because I always look at these shows where they end up with these fish in the Japanese markets and they sell like these huge tunas.
It's usually baloney.
Is it BS?
It's baloney.
Yeah?
Yeah. I mean,
I was like, how could it be so expensive? And how good does it taste? Like,
it's good.
In Miami, what's the tastiest fish? Like, if you really want a fish to eat and you want to go fishing, what do you fish for? What do you personally like the taste of? You go, that tastes so damn good.
I would say, well, there's a few of them on the list, but I would say the one that you're most readily able to catch would be wahoo. And I haven't eaten much wahoo. I used to cook it. And then one day I decided to do the sashimi, and it was just unbelievable with this oil we used and some sea salt and a little jalapeno pepper. And you just take each piece and just pop it in. You don't need the jalapeno peppers, but this was this dish we made, and it was just phenomenal. But then you have a mutton snapper, which is fantastic. You have hogfish, incredible. And then you get to this fish called a queen snapper. Looks like a giant goldfish. And you would think you're almost eating fish mixed with cotton candy, if you could imagine this weirdness. It was one of the best eating fish I've ever had. The texture, super white meat, just incredible. And we caught it down in Islamorada. They have them in the Bahamas, but in Islamorada, for some reason, they grow them big, 800 feet deep. So when you get the bite, you better take a deep breath and know you're going to be pumping and winding for a long time. A lot of guys use electrics, but I like to use hand crank. So I always tell everybody, like, I got old man strength.
How long does that take to reel that in?
Those fish, luckily, they're only like 15 to 20 pounds. It's the swordfish that could take 5 hours. You don't need to go to the
gym, because quite honestly, I mean, the amount of you're going to work out, just go fishing.
Oh, yeah. Like I was just talking earlier about this, but I don't know, 400-pound marlin I caught in the Galapagos, and it took me 2.5 hours, and the boat wasn't helping me. Normally on a sport fish, you back up and chase the fish in reverse, and you bridge the gap, and you kind of shorten the gap, and you crank and wind, and he's going back, and the mate leaders the fish. But I was doing it for my show, so the mate grabbed the leader, and I knew if he'd taken like a wrap on it and the fish surged, it was going to break. So that's my show, and I'm in the Galapagos. So I'm like, okay, touch the leader. We got the fish. So I kind of say it on camera, hey, we got the release, but I want to show you guys at home what it looks like. And I fought this fish for 2.5 hours, and it was like everything I had. I was so overheated, never been that overheated, in the Galapagos at the equator, 100 plus degrees. Your ears are sunburned, the back of your legs you can't put enough sunblock on. You literally can't. And I wound up getting this fish, and I had to take a half an hour literally to recoup. I've heard stories about this where the guy was like curled up in the air conditioning for like a half an hour and kind of like, seizing up a little bit. I was like, am I going to seize up? I don't even know what's happening. I can barely breathe. And I finished, and I sat down in the chair, and the guy was like, Peter, say something. I'm like,
what hurts in your body? Is it like, it's like the CrossFit games of fishing? Because what hurts in your body? Like, what hurts the most? Is it the forearms or the shoulders or his back or everything? On this particular fish, it was more like exhaustion, like endurance, because I was muscling it. Like with everything I had, and like the whole body is like quivering, like you get to a point where you got nothing left, and you're just like holding it and just pulling a giant fish in, just dead weight. And he's kind of pulsing, and the boat's kind of bobbing. And the fish is feeling the same thing. That's fighting you, and that is getting tired too. And it's like, who's got the most endurance?
I said that at the end of the show. I said, I think it was a tie. I said, this fish is happy to get released, and I was happy that it was over. And I took the fish and released
Fish swam
it.
off to find the nearest air conditioning unit.
Yeah,
to cut
yeah, exactly. He probably went down to the deep water like, whew, that guy was too much. But yeah, so queen snapper, mutton snapper, wahoo, those are phenomenal fish. Of course, we have the blackfin tuna here, which, they call it the poor man's tuna because the yellowfin's a step up from that. Yeah. And then the bluefin is phenomenal. Then they have the big eye tunas, but we don't get the big eye. We do have bluefin that come through here, but I caught a bluefin up in the Northeast last season, and I remember cutting through it with my knife, and it was so oily and fatty to the point where I didn't even understand why I couldn't cut it. Because I was like, oh no, you have to wipe the knife off after each cut because there's so much oil and fat in the meat. And I'm thinking to myself, And then I took a bite of this thing, and I was like, that is the best.
Like the Wagyu
tuna.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they bring the toro, they bring the belly, and there's like 10 pounds worth of fatty tuna belly off this bluefin tuna. And he's just like, try this.
How long does it take you to get the meat out to consume it? So you come in on the boat, or you're doing this out in the ocean?
No, we do. You have to do it on shore for legal reasons, for just because they want to know who's catching what. So you got to keep your fish whole until you get back to the dock. So I think we could fillet that fish in probably 15 minutes to a 150-pound fish.
So given the fact that you can eat this fish fresh off the boat, like when you go out to dine, you're kind of like spoiled because you're going, what's your favorite fish restaurant in Miami? Like, where do you go out to eat?
Oh boy, there's a couple of great sushi places. I have a friend that has Uchi Miami. That's a sushi restaurant. And
where's that one?
It's in downtown. It's down by Wynwood or like downtown Miami. I don't remember the exact address.
These are like little places.
It's a pretty decent sized place. Size? Yeah, he's yeah. And I did a show, and I had my daughter Emily as my guest on the show. And part of that deal was to go to a sushi bar after we had our fishing experience. So we caught bass, peacock bass, went offshore, caught mahi and some tunas, and then we went to Uchi as kind of like a night out, father-daughter kind of date. And we had this, deal where they give you omakase, where the chef decides what you're going to get. So he brings in, this braised short rib it's been this for 72 hours or 7 years. I don't know what it was. Something it's been hanging on
braised for a while.
Clothesline. Yeah, it's pretty braised. And then we just had some of the most amazing food we ever had. He's like, so you guys good? You get your shots? I go, yeah, we got our shots, but we're starving. I said, I
was going to say, you got to get, it's one of the best things. If you are doing as a sport and realizing it's a sport, there's a huge physicality to this. And I was watching the videos, I was watching your videos, and I was like, this guy's in shape. Like, I can critique people generally, how well conditioned they are. I was like, and hearing you talk, I'm like, of course he's in shape. Because the physicality of catching these fish, 2 hours, an hour, this is a lot of work. And so at the end of it, you've got that double whammy of catching a great fish, having that buzz of catching it, and being super damn hungry that you actually you want to eat it. Like you're famished after that, I can imagine.
You're right. And the funny thing is, your body from over the years, it's kind of like a memory, muscle memory. Yep. The way I fight a fish, and I know when to pause. I know when to do what I need to do, and I could pace it. And when I know it's a big fish and I'm going to be there a while, I kind of try to plan out the battle.
Yeah, it's a strategy. Just like every sport. You don't run a marathon holding your breath, otherwise you'll pass out within a few seconds.
And a lot of new people or newbies will pull on the line the whole time as hard as they can. Yeah. A lot of football players, like giant guys, will come out, pull, and the lines go, but the line's going off the reel. As they pull, they're losing line. Yeah. So I'm like, guys, look at your reel. And as he pulls up, the line comes off. I said, if you pull up so smooth, the drag is set just right, so you're going to gain on the way down, and you're going to pull up. But they're like, and they finish, they're like, oh man, my arms are burnt. I can't. My wrists are broken. I'm like, you just caught one fish. We catch something like 40 in a day. And it's just, I think it's muscle memory and technique. But you're right. You do get hungry, and there's nothing better than being able to catch like a tuna. I went to West Marine when I finished that shoot up in New Jersey with that tuna, and I bought these two Yeti. Yeti is a sponsor of mine, and they give me a lot of stuff for free. A ton of stuff.
Don't tell my daughters this, because my daughters have this weird obsession with kids with like Yeti coolers and the cups and stuff. There you go.
This is my teacup. I got this from Pacific Fins. This is one of my Yeti cups. I love the yellow. It's a little loud, but that way I can find it.
I was going to say, jump it around, you can't miss it.
Yeah. So I went into West Marine and I said, I need some soft-sided coolers because I couldn't carry like a big cooler and strap it down because they have zippers or magnets. So I took 80 pounds of bluefin tuna home to Miami from New Jersey in these coolers. I went to Newark Airport, returned my car, and the guy's like, what are those in those bags? And I'm like, just tuna, no big deal. And he goes, okay. We got home. I had ice, they were iced up. I trimmed it up again, cleaned it, dried it. I put paper towels on it, Ziplocs, shrink wrap, food saver bags, and then I gave it to all my neighbors, and they still rave about it. And one's like, I still have some in my freezer, it lasts, if you put it in a food saver for a long time. I like to eat it fresh. So we had it for Thanksgiving. So we had a turkey, a big, beautiful turkey that my wife made. And then I made a giant tray as big as your, whatever they call it.
Big as this pad here.
Yeah, as big as that pad of just sashimi. And you can't cut it fast enough. Everybody in the family was just like, with the wasabi and the soy sauce, just bing, 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 bing.
It's making me hungry.
Yeah, it's so good. I got to get back up there, get a fat one.
So we could talk for hours, but I guess wrapping this up, the conclusions is that I think this has given a lot of people a chance to really your stories has made me want to go out and I want to go fishing. I want to go catch some of this stuff. And the lifestyle here, which I think a lot of people, when they come down into South Florida, they're trying to figure out, why do I want to move down here? There's many reasons. There's many reasons to live in Miami. I mean, the weather's good. The structure's good. There's a lot of positivity for business. There's a lot of personal protection for individuals, a lot of safety. Just general quality of life's amazing. But also with a lot of people I see coming down, there's a lot of individuals coming into these neighborhoods that we're dealing with who are... they're established professionals. I mean, a lot of people relocate because they're looking to save tax. And the reason they're looking to save tax is because they make a lot of money, or enough at least to warrant the move. And so when we see this coming down here, a lot of them said to me, what's to do down here? What do I do down in Miami? I'm like, well, what do you want to do? But this is a whole other thing. I mean, this is a whole other sport, hobby, industry area that has a lot of, come and explore it. What I noticed more than anything in Miami, and I've noticed this over the last years, people ask me, what's the best neighborhood to buy into right now if you're going to go and buy? And actually, weirdly enough, buying a waterfront house in Coco Plum may be, or Old Cutler Bay if you can kind of up it a little bit, or Gables State if you can up it again, may be one of the best investments you can make, because when you look at the finite supply of waterfront houses in Miami, it's very finite. I mean, there is a very limited, there's actually 42, I counted this, 42 what I call peninsula front homes, the ones directly on the water, where you've just got nothing but ocean in front of you. And that's a really, really small number. And knowing as people are moving in and wanting these homes, it's kind of a supply-demand situation, that natural, it's gone. I mean, you got friends in Gables Estates and Old Cutler Bay, and I'm sure going to these guys, it's what does it take to get these guys to move? They're like, I'm not, you can keep offering me more dollars, I'm not moving.
Yeah, I mean, they have their money. They made their money. Their houses have quadrupled or more. I've had friends that bought places there for $3 million in Old Cutler Bay, and now the house is $12 million.
Yeah,
10 years later.
And some more. I sold. There was an acre and a half I sold in Gables Estates. It belonged to the Global family, the Brazilian communications TV company, and they owned it. It was an acre and a half. It was a 60. Is that right, Chris? It was a 65,000 square foot lot. We traded it for, I want to say it was seven. No. That was 148 Lucadendra. That I sold for 7.5. That was an acre on the water in Gables Estates, or just under an acre. This one was an acre and a half. And that one, I think we traded for 12 or 13 in the end, 12 or 13 million. And we did one of our team, Jason, he kind of has been filming luxury real estate for years, doing these TV show walkarounds. Let's take a 30, 40, $50 million property, go and tour it, video it, and then we'll stick it online. And this video's got millions of views. And we look back on a property during the pandemic. It was a condo they was trying to sell. It was 32 million. And at the time, there was a 4-acre lot at the end of Gables Estates.
Oh, I know that one.
Traded, yeah. It was 32 million it traded for. Which you try and buy 4 acres, point lot at the end of Gables Estates today. I don't think you got enough money in the world to buy that.
I can't even imagine. It's
100 million plus.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But it's these examples, and I'm thinking right now, as we've got people moving in, we don't even have full critical mass. All those hedge fund guys. I mean, have you taken those guys out? Did you get the calls from the hedge fund guys at Citadel saying, "Hey, take me out"?
Yeah, I get calls from those guys, and they also invest in one of the other shows I'm doing, the Sport Fishing Championship. And, hedge funds guys are coming in and doing buying into it. They want to be part of it because it's a successful, celebrity-driven live TV show that I host called Sport Fishing Championship. And so we have like a whole host of different companies getting involved, and it's interesting. And then they're buying up these companies. But what we were talking about earlier, how the interest rates are dropping maybe 10 times over the course of a year coming up, where they predict. I mean, it's going to make it very,
it's very appealing.
Very appealing for people to come down here and buy, because like you said, if you've got that, what am I going to do when I move to New York City? What am I going to what do I do there? Like, I got to go down to Chelsea Piers and maybe rent a sailboat on a sloppy night, get knocked around by tankers and shipping lanes. It's
not pretty. Chelsea Pier, I was down, there's a big gym down on the Chelsea Pier down in Manhattan.
Yeah.
It's the Chelsea Pier health club, whatever they want to call it.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there and I'm looking out the window looking at the Statue of Liberty off in the, and I'm like, this waterway it's not pretty.
No, it's pretty when you, if you like, I picked it right one night on a beautiful sailboat with my wife and another couple. My friend David Fallerino, he's a mortgage guy. He closed over $2 billion in mortgages, and he's a good friend of mine. He's the one that had me refinance my home and get me a 2.8% in 2021. Jeez. Yeah, so I think they call that free money.
That is free money.
Yeah, that's my best deal I got going out of everything I do.
That's free money, and that's free money with interest. Yeah. That's what that is.
Yeah. So we went out with them. We had Frank Sinatra going. We had wine, and we had a charcuterie board, and we're going past the Statue of Liberty, and it's lit. It was a full moon, beautiful temperature, like a little blanket for everybody. And this fire boat came out and started testing their water cannons in front of us, like in the view of the Statue of Liberty with the full moon, with Frank Sinatra drinking the wine. I'm like, oh my God. And then we went to the Brooklyn Bridge and came back. I was like, wow, that was good. And then we went to Mr. Chow's for dinner. I'm like, that's cool. But gee, that's a very rare occasion. Here, you could do it every week.
That's the thing,
the beautiful
man.
part.
New York is amazing for a slither of time in the year. You go in the right time of the year, and it's amazing. I was up there a few months ago because, as one of the bigger players at Douglas Elliman, I've got partners in New York, business partners in California, partners in Boston, and I go to these different cities. When I time it right, like Boston at the right time of year, New York at the right time of year, LA the right time, it's amazing. But then there's times of the year that you go, particularly New York, and it's kind of like London, where I'm from, and I'm like, okay, there's a reason. I know why I left now. But down here, it's 10 months of the year. It's 11 months of the year. I mean, basically,
it's year round.
It's
really
year round,
is
365. You can be out there. And the hedge fund guys, it made me think, those guys, there's something I was thinking about, like, what is it that is the bug? And then I thought to myself, there's something inside a lot of us, that instinctive hunter instinct that we have. That's something that is just, we come alive when you get into that challenge with you and nature. It's just something that's very primitive to a degree.
And visceral.
And that's, I see the guys in the finance world, that hedge fund world, it's like they want to chase. It's like it's the chase. It's the journey, not the destination.
You probably know Jeff Altman.
Yeah, I know the name.
Yeah, he's big into sport fishing, and he's a big hedge fund guy. Yeah, his boat's name is called Owl's Nest, and his fund, or his name of his company, has the owl in there somewhere. He's one of those guys where he's got 3 or 4 boats at Miami Beach Marina. Great guy, loves fishing, and anytime you see him, he's with a celebrity. You've got Carson Daly. You look over and they're fishing together, and all these guys buy these big boats, but they really love fishing. And then the other show I'm doing, we have Scotty Scheffler, the #1 golfer in the world right now. He's won everything, and he just won a gold medal. He just bought a franchise in the Sport Fishing Championship that I'm hosting live on CBS Sports coming up for this new year, and we've got all these different celebrities coming. I'm at a loss for words. Randy Moss, the football player, #1 wide receiver of all time. I had him on my show at my lake fishing, 6'6", another guy. You don't realize how big these guys are until you go to hug them goodbye.
We've got a lot
and your head hits them in the middle of the chest. You're like, huh?
I think any guys who have that kind of drive. And again, we've got clients from the NFL and NBA that we've worked with, and you guys know, if you watch this, you know who you are. I won't say names because privacy is very important. But I know that those guys, like, if you're watching these guys, give me a kill. Yeah, give me a call on this. And those guys, actually, again, we know a lot of the guys. If you're at Citadel or you're at Millennium or any of these other groups, and this seems like your speed, DM me on this, and we'll see what we can do to set this up. Hopefully, this podcast will give those like myself who don't know about fishing, the sport of fishing, the experience, a chance to say, you know what, I want to give that a go. That sounds like a lot of fun. And it has a lot of benefits to it. And those that do know, maybe you want to maybe upgrade and take it more seriously. And I'm just saying, maybe if you want to decide you like it well enough that you decide I want to buy a house on the water, you've got a guy to call. What can I say? Peter, this has been fantastic. I'm going to no doubt keep in contact and asking you more questions in the future. And I think a fishing trip is definitely on the horizon.
For sure. We'll get you on a fish and something you can eat, something you can take home and eat, because it sounds like you're getting hungry right now. I know I am.
Peter, thank you again.
Thank you.
Much appreciated.
My pleasure.
And hopefully you guys enjoyed watching this episode, and stay tuned soon for another episode of the Better Decisions podcast.